Hello, I'm James Macquarie, one of the founders at GLAD. This is our Breaking Down Climate Pollution podcast, in which we ask AI to generate a deep dive conversation based on climate science or policy documents we'd like to learn more about. In this episode, we asked the AI to explore a report from the Science Based Targets Initiative, unpacking the concept of Beyond Value Chain Mitigation, and how it can help companies make a genuine impact in the effort to fix climate change by looking beyond their immediate operations. Let's dive in.
You know, we're always hearing about companies going green these days.
Yeah.
Well, today's deep dive takes that idea to a whole new level.
Definitely.
We're talking about fighting climate change, but not just by, swapping out light bulbs or something.
Right.
We're going way beyond that.
Exactly. We're diving into this report from SBTI, the Science Based Targets Initiative, about how businesses can make a real difference in the fight against climate change by looking beyond their own operations.
And you handed us this dense report here.
Yeah.
Packed with info.
Lots of info.
So we're here to break it all down for you.
Yeah. The interesting thing is that while this report is aimed at companies, the ideas apply to all of us, really, who are trying to understand how to really move the needle on climate change.
Right. So no more companies hiding behind eco-friendly packaging while ignoring the bigger picture.
Precisely.
Right.
The report argues that even if every company went completely carbon neutral, which is a huge task in itself, it still wouldn't be enough to avoid the most serious impacts of climate change.
So how do we bridge that gap then?
Right.
What else can companies do?
That's where Beyond Value Chain Mitigation comes in, or BVCM.
Catchy name. What's it all about?
So think of it like this.
Okay.
Imagine you have a messy room.
Okay.
Cleaning your own room is important.
Yeah.
But it doesn't address the mess in the rest of the house, right?
Right.
BVCM is about companies looking beyond their immediate operations.
Okay.
And investing in solutions that benefit the planet as a whole.
So it's like they're cleaning up the whole neighborhood.
Exactly.
Not just their own backyard.
It's about taking responsibility for their broader impact.
Okay, like that.
One of the examples in the report is a fictional food and beverage company, they call it Umbrella Corporation, that decides to invest in protecting the Amazon rainforest.
Which, that makes sense, right?
Right.
Protecting those rainforests probably helps secure their own supply of ingredients in the long run.
Yeah.
It's smart business, Andy. Good for the planet.
Yes.
Win-win.
But the report emphasizes that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to BVCM.
Okay.
It outlines different methods companies can use to figure out how much they should contribute. One is to link their BVCM commitment to a percentage of their emissions.
Okay.
Another is to link it to their profits.
So a company that's more profitable might have, a larger responsibility.
That's the idea.
Okay.
It's about finding a scale that makes sense for each individual company,
Uh-huh.
but also encourages them to be ambitious.
But isn't there a risk that companies might be incentivized to just choose the cheapest option, even if it's not the most impactful?
Right.
How do we ensure they're not just ticking boxes?
That's where the concept of high-integrity BVCM comes in.
Okay.
And the report dives into that in depth.
Okay.
It emphasizes that these activities should be focused on projects that deliver real, measurable emission reductions and also provide benefits to local communities and biodiversity.
Right. It's got to be holistic.
Yeah.
So it's not just about writing a check.
Right.
It's about making sure that money is making a real difference.
Yeah, exactly.
But how do these different approaches actually play out in the real world?
So the report highlights a few different companies
Okay.
and their approaches to BVCM.
Okay.
One example is ReedCamp, which is a very profitable tech company based in Brazil.
Okay.
Their profits work out to roughly $6,667 for every metric ton of greenhouse gases they emit across their entire operation.
Wow, that's a hefty profit margin.
Yeah.
So they probably have a lot of room to make some serious moves in the BVCM department.
Exactly. And they've chosen to put a price on their unavoidable emissions.
Right.
Remember we were talking about that?
Yeah.
They landed on a midpoint estimate of $75 per metric ton of CO2 equivalent.
Okay, so they're putting their money where their mouth is.
Yeah.
But what are they actually doing with that money?
So ReedCamp decided to focus on a few key areas.
Okay.
Being a Brazilian company, they're prioritizing halting deforestation in the Amazon rainforest.
Makes sense.
They're also supporting similar efforts in the Congo Basin,
Okay.
since they source raw materials from that region.
Smart move. It's like they're looking at the bigger picture of their impact.
Yeah.
And trying to address it strategically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not just about planting trees. They're also investing in developing new climate technologies.
Oh, wow.
Things like methane destruction, long-duration energy storage, green hydrogen.
So they're looking at protecting existing natural resources.
Yeah.
And investing in innovations that can help us transition to a cleaner future. It sounds like a pretty comprehensive approach.
It really is.
Yeah.
And they're doing all of this while also making sure their BVCM activities benefit local communities and uphold high social and environmental standards.
Of course. Got to have that.
It's encouraging to see a company really striving to do this right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a large multinational company.
Right.
What about a smaller company?
Yeah.
Does the report have any examples of how they're approaching BVCM?
It does.
Okay.
There's a case study about Picado.
Okay.
A software and telecommunications startup in Japan.
Okay.
They're much smaller than ReedCamp.
Right.
But they're already committed to sustainability in their own operations.
Okay.
They use 100% renewable energy and have sustainable sourcing policies in place.
So they're already ahead of the game in terms of their own operations.
Exactly.
How does that translate to BVCM?
So they wanted to go further.
Okay.
And they decided to link their BVCM commitment to their direct emissions using something called the social cost of carbon to figure out how much to invest.
Okay, let's break that down a little bit. What exactly is the social cost of carbon?
So essentially, it's a way to put a dollar value on the damage caused by each ton of carbon dioxide released into the atmosphere. It considers things like the potential cost of future climate impacts.
Got it.
Picado used a figure of $185 per metric ton.
That's more than double the carbon price that ReedCamp was using.
It is. And this shows that there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Right.
Each company has to figure out what makes sense for them.
Okay.
But Picado, even though it's a smaller company, is investing proportionally more because of their commitment to this social cost of carbon idea.
So their BVCM strategy is driven by their values.
Exactly.
Even if it means a bigger investment on their part.
Right.
What kind of projects are they supporting?
So their portfolio reflects a global outlook.
Okay.
They're putting money towards renewable energy projects in India, supporting forest conservation in Southeast Asia, and funding the expansion of green spaces in urban areas in Japan.
It's impressive to see how they're spreading their impact.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got a large company and a startup,
right?
Both with very different approaches to BVCM. What about industries that aren't directly producing goods or services?
Yeah.
Does the report address those too?
It does. There's a really interesting case study about Beyond Ventures.
Okay.
Private equity firm.
Those are the folks who invest in other companies, right?
That's right.
So their BVCM strategy must be a bit different.
You're right. They're not manufacturing anything.
Right.
So they're focused on the impact of their investments.
Right.
Not their own direct emissions.
Okay.
They use a framework to assess what are called the financed emissions of their investments. Basically, the emissions associated with the companies they invest in.
So they're trying to make sure the companies in their portfolio are also on board with BVCM.
That's a big part of it. And they're also putting their money where their mouth is.
Okay.
Beyond Ventures is investing in a really diverse range of BVCM projects.
Like what?
They're involved in everything from jurisdictional REDD carbon credits.
Okay.
Those are verified credits from forest conservation projects to renewable energy projects. They're even investing in more cutting-edge solutions like carbon removal technologies and initiatives that are helping society transition away from fossil fuels.
It sounds like they're really covering a lot of ground.
They are.
Yeah.
And this really highlights that BVCM is not about finding a single magic bullet.
Right.
It's about supporting a portfolio of solutions that can contribute to a more sustainable future.
We've covered three very different companies.
We have.
A large multinational, a tech startup, and a private equity firm.
Right.
All approaching BVCM in their own unique ways.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to see how this concept can be adapted to such different business models.
Absolutely.
But we've mentioned a few terms that might need some more explanation.
Okay.
Terms like carbon credits and removal technologies. We don't want to leave our listener hanging.
Yeah.
So let's unpack those a bit.
Okay.
Let's start with carbon credits. I hear that term everywhere, but I'm still not entirely sure I understand how they work.
Yeah, it's easy to get lost in the jargon.
Right.
But the idea is pretty simple.
Okay.
A carbon credit is like a certificate representing 1 ton of carbon dioxide.
Okay.
That's either been removed from the atmosphere or prevented from being emitted in the first place.
So if a company plants a whole forest, and that forest absorbs 1 million tons of CO2,
Yeah.
they could get 1 million carbon credits.
Exactly. And they can then sell those credits to other companies that need to offset their own emissions.
Interesting.
It's like a market for pollution reduction.
So a company that's really good at reducing emissions can actually generate revenue by selling those reductions to others.
That's the idea.
Okay.
The report highlights that it's really important to make sure these carbon credits are high quality, though, and represent real emissions reductions.
Yeah.
There's always a risk of greenwashing.
Of course.
Where companies try to game the system.
Right, because just buying credits without actually reducing their own impact wouldn't really be solving the problem.
You've hit the nail on the head. That's why transparency and strong verification standards for carbon credits are so crucial.
Makes sense. Okay, now let's talk about removal technologies.
Right.
Those sound like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
Yeah, they might sound futuristic.
Yeah.
But they're becoming increasingly important in the fight against climate change.
Okay.
These technologies actively pull CO2 out of the atmosphere.
How do they work?
There are a few different approaches.
Okay.
One is called direct air capture, where you have these machines that essentially suck CO2 right out of the air.
Wow.
Another promising technology is called bioenergy with carbon capture and storage.
Wow. That's a mouthful.
It is, but the concept is pretty cool.
Okay.
It involves growing plants specifically to absorb CO2, then burning them for energy, but capturing the emissions from that burning. Okay.
And storing them underground.
So it's like using plants as a way to pull CO2 out of the atmosphere and lock it away.
Exactly.
Wow.
These removal technologies are still relatively new.
Okay.
But they have huge potential for helping us reach global net zero emissions.
It's fascinating to see how much innovation is happening in this space.
It is.
We've gone from talking about companies simply reducing their own footprints to investing in technologies that could actually reverse climate change.
It's a really exciting time to be looking at climate solutions. And BVCM is about supporting this entire spectrum of solutions.
Right.
From those that reduce emissions today to those that could help us create a carbon neutral future.
This deep dive has been incredibly eye-opening.
It has.
We've gone from a dense technical report to a really engaging conversation, I think.
About how companies can be a force for good in the fight against climate change.
It's been a pleasure exploring this with you.
Likewise.
It's a topic that deserves everyone's attention.
Absolutely. And for our listener, here's something to think about.
Okay.
We've been talking about companies and their impact on the world.
Right.
But what about our own individual impact? What if each of us looked at our own lives through this Beyond Value Chain lens? Food for thought. Until next time, happy deep diving.